This weekend is WrestleMania. In fact, tomorrow is WrestleMania if you're watching this video on Friday, the day that I'm releasing it. And so because of that, I wanted to do a wrestling video, but I also want this to be a writing video. And in fact, it is going to be first and foremost a writing video because I have long felt that regardless of whether you happen to be a fan of professional wrestling or not, and I know a lot of people aren't, which I understand and is completely fine, when professional wrestling as an art form is done properly, in my opinion, it employs a very simple form of storytelling. It employs very basic storytelling. And when it's done improperly, that is often the result, again, in my opinion, as a lifelong wrestling fan, of the people who try to tell wrestling stories making things overly complicated and getting away from those fundamentals, away from those basics. So because of those two things, I find that professional wrestling is a really good tool, a really good example to look to illustrate and explain and hopefully allow people to understand certain basic concepts of storytelling. But before I talk about wrestling, and before I talk in a little bit more detail about storytelling, I want to show you a clip from a movie that does have to do with writing, but has nothing to do with professional wrestling. But it does illustrate or introduce the idea that I want to talk about in this video. And this is a clip from a movie from the year 2000 called Wonder Boys, which if you've never seen Wonder Boys, I highly recommend it. It's a really, really good movie. It stars Michael Douglas and Katie Holmes, and they are going to be the stars of this clip that I'm about to show you. And the setup you need to know going into this clip is basically this. Michael Douglas plays a middle-aged college professor who is also a very well-known writer, and he published a famous and critically acclaimed great American novel type book many years ago. And ever since then, he has been laboring on the follow-up, and he has never finished it. He's been writing his second novel, like ever since the first novel was published and was a big smash. And what this clip is Katie Holmes is his star student in his class, and he has given her the manuscript for his second novel to read. And this manuscript is a beast. It's like a phone book on top of a phone book. It's this massive thing. And Katie Holmes, wanting to be a good student and impress her professor, read this monstrosity of a book. And this is what she had to say in response.
Grady, you know how in class how you're always telling us that writers make choices?
Yeah.
It sort of reads in places like you didn't really make any choices.
Most of the time, movies about writers or movies that attempt to illuminate the process of writing or explore the genius of a particular writer wind up being not very good because movies about writers are written by writers and they tend to be self-indulgent and navel-gazing. And there are definitely exceptions to that rule. The movie adaptation comes to mind immediately as a very strong exception to that rule. But generally speaking, they don't make for very good drama, and they don't make for very good educational tools to teach people about writing. But I think Wonder Boys is another exception to that rule in both categories, because as drama, as a story, I think it's great. And that piece of advice that Katie Holmes says in that clip that she says she got from Michael Douglas's character is one of the best, most fundamental pieces of writing advice I think I've ever seen conveyed through a movie. Writing is making choices. And I'm going to illustrate the value of making choices in writing with an example from professional wrestling. So, WrestleMania, for completely commercial reasons, for no valid creative reason at all, has been a two-night event for the last several years. There's WrestleMania Saturday and WrestleMania Sunday. As a fan, I hate it. I think WrestleMania should be a one-night event, and I also think it should be 3 or 4 hours absolute max. There's no reason for the show to last. There's no reason for wrestling shows in general, no matter what event or what company is putting them on, to last longer than 3 or 4 hours. It's just absurd. But WrestleMania Saturday this year, one of the matches is for the Women's Tag Team Championship. And this is the match. The champions, the Irresistible Forces, which is the team of Nia Jax and Lash Legend, versus the team of Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, versus the team of Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, versus the team of the Bella Twins. It is a four-way match. Four teams will be competing in the match against each other all at the same time. Now, I want you to keep that match in your mind, the four-way tag team match for the Women's Tag Team Championship, and compare that to the main event of Night 2 of WrestleMania, the main event of WrestleMania Sunday, also known as the actual main event of WrestleMania. And that is a match for the World Heavyweight Championship between the champion CM Punk and the challenger Roman Reigns, who is also the winner of the Royal Rumble this year. You have a four-way match between four different teams, and you have a singles match between two people. And who knows which match will turn out to be the better match? The event hasn't happened yet. Who knows which match will end up being, more of a highlight of the event than the other? I have my guess. I have my expectation, but we don't really know until the events have happened. So I'm not going to talk about the actual matches themselves because they haven't happened yet. But the build-up to the matches, the attempt to generate anticipation, the storytelling leading into WrestleMania is a study in contrasts that illustrates the importance of making choices in your writing and the power that not only making the right choices, obviously, but just having the courage as a storyteller to make choices, the power that can lend your story. Because on the one hand, the Sunday match, the main event of WrestleMania Sunday between CM Punk and Roman Reigns, that is the result of the creative team of WWE that are in charge of putting that show together, making choices, making simple, concrete choices that led to a particular match that feels specific, that feels real emotionally, that feels like it has weight, and it feels like it has consequence. And on Saturday, the night before, there is, among the other matches on the card, there's lots of other matches on the card that I'm not talking about because they don't serve my point, but one of the matches on Saturday is that four-way women's tag team match, women's tag team title match. And that is a match where it feels like, just like Katie Holmes says about Michael Douglas's novel, it feels like leading up to that match, nobody made any choices. Let me go through the participants in the women's tag team championship match. So you have the champions, the Irresistible Forces. They are heels or bad guys in wrestling parlance. And they won the championships, I believe, back in February. So they've been champions for a couple of months. And they're sort of, monster heels. They're like big asshole monster heels. They're a little larger than most of the other women wrestlers. And, they're heels, so they cheat. And they have big personalities, and they're boisterous and braggadocious and egotistical. And they're the heels, and they could have a story with any of the other teams in the match. The first other team in the match is Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. They are former enemies who then became friends and became tag team partners, and a lot of the story of just their team has been them sort of gelling as a unit and putting aside their old rivalry and their old mistrust of each other and learning to work together and trust each other and become like a cohesive team. They are former champions. So the story of the match, if the match had been the Irresistible Forces defending their tag team titles against Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, the story going into that could have been the former champions, Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, who themselves are former enemies against each other, are continuing to put their differences aside and join together, and now they are going after the Irresistible Forces to win back the tag team championships that they once held and that they want to have again, to prove to themselves and to the fans and to everybody that they really are a cohesive team. They really are friends. They really are the best, twosome of wrestlers in the women's tag team division. And they want to have those titles to prove that, right? And to win back what they lost. That's one possible story that they could have told. They also could have told a story leading into a match where the Irresistible Forces are defending the tag team titles against the team of Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. And this is a team where it's kind of mentor-student. Lyra Valkyria is still relatively new. She's been wrestling for a few years, but she still has that sort of fresh-faced newcomer feel to her. She's much younger than Bayley. Bayley has been around for a while at this point. She is a veteran. Last year at WrestleMania, Bayley and Lyra were supposed to wrestle for the tag team titles, and Bayley missed the show. She was attacked and injured and wasn't able to wrestle. So that has been part of Bayley's story leading up to WrestleMania, that she and her partner Lyra were supposed to wrestle for the titles last year. Bayley didn't make WrestleMania last year. That opportunity was taken from her. And now this year she is determined to make good, to make up for what happened last year. She's not going to miss WrestleMania this year. She's going to have her match. She's going to have her moment. And that moment is going to be when she and her partner, her student, the friend, the younger friend that she has mentored, when they win the tag team titles. That could have been the story as well. Or it could have been the Irresistible Forces versus the Bella Twins. The Bella Twins are identical twin sisters who were stars in the WWE about 10 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago, and then they retired and they moved on and they did other things, but they're still relatively young and in good shape. And so just a few months ago, they came back. And first, Nikki Bella came back, and then her sister Brie Bella came back as well, and they reformed their tag team, and they are once again the Bella Twins, and they have never held the women's tag team titles, because back when they were in their heyday, when they were wrestling before, there was no women's tag team championship. The WWE did not have that title. So they are back, both to prove that they've still got it as veterans, as people who retired and came out of retirement, and they're going to try and prove that they are not only still capable of wrestling at a high level, but they're actually as good as or better than any of the younger teams who have come in their wake and have taken this over since they have been gone. So they have a built-in story as well. The Bella Twins are coming back out of retirement for a comeback run to not only prove themselves that they can hang with all the athletes of today, but they're going to win those championships that they deserve because they think they're the best. And also, it's a title that they never had the opportunity to win before because it didn't exist. So all of those stories are there in that match, but the problem is the creative team of WWE didn't choose which of those stories it wanted to tell for WrestleMania. So the match isn't one of those stories. The match isn't the Irresistible Forces versus Charlotte and Alexa, or Irresistible Forces versus Bayley and Lyra, or Irresistible Forces versus the Bella Twins, any one of which could have been a good build and a good story to a compelling and intriguing match. Instead, they said, let's throw everybody into the same match. Instead of having a match between one team on this side and one team on this side that have a clear reason to fight and a clear, simple, easy to understand rivalry where there's a good team and a bad team, there's a champion and a challenger, and there's going to be one of two results. Either the challengers are going to succeed and prove themselves and attain their goal and win the title, or the dastardly heels are going to escape with the title some way or another. Instead of that, it's a four-way match where everybody's just thrown in together and nothing means anything. And that's what you get when you try to tell a story without making choices. You get a whole bunch of things thrown into a pot together where nothing really stands out. There's no contrast. It's hard for an audience to form specific expectations. Everything is way too complicated. Everything is way too jumbled and pressed together. Nothing has any room to breathe. It's hard to choose what to focus on. In this case, for a wrestling match, who to root for, what to expect, and then you don't know if those expectations have been subverted or defied because you never really had a clear expectation to begin with. So that's the first example. That's the match where it feels like nobody made any choices. The other example I gave you was the main event of WrestleMania Sunday, which is CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. That is a match that is the exact opposite. That is a match where it really feels like they made choices, because there were many different ways that they could have gone. There are many different roads that they could have gone down for the main event of WrestleMania this year. This was not the only match they could have done. There are many possibilities. They probably could have done a match. They easily could have done a match for the main event of WrestleMania this year for the world title, where it was a 3-way or a 4-way or a 5-way or a 6-way. They easily could have. The WWE has enough top stars, enough baby faces. They could have said, let's just put a bunch of guys in one match. But they didn't do that. They said, CM Punk is our champion. He's been the champion since October, I think. He's doing really well. He's popular. He's killing it on promos. He's our top baby face. And let's put him in a match against a guy, Roman Reigns, who at this point is also a babyface. So you have two top baby faces, two top heroes going against each other. Roman Reigns, a former champion, legendary former champion, at one time held the world title in the WWE for 4 years without ever losing it. So they made a choice. They said, we're going to have Roman win the Royal Rumble, and then the winner of the Royal Rumble has the right to choose their match for WrestleMania. So Roman is going to win the Rumble, and then he's going to come out afterwards on TV, and he's going to say, I want to fight CM Punk for the World Heavyweight title. Boom. One-on-one. Simple. Easy, basic wrestling, right? No unnecessary complications, just two guys who know what they're doing, who can wrestle, who can talk, who have clear personas, who have a clear image to all the fans. If you're a wrestling fan and you've been watching for a little while, you feel like you know who each guy is, and now they are coming to clash. And the build-up to their match has been basically both guys taking turns, using their verbal skills, using their personalities to get over how much they hate each other and how much they can't wait to get in the ring and fight each other and settle this once and for all and prove who is the best and who deserves to carry the championship. It's a simple story. It's a classic professional wrestling story. Nothing is more complicated than it needs to be. There's no sense that anybody's trying to get cute with anything, that anybody's trying to overreach. It's as basic and fundamental as it can be, and that is why, in my opinion, it is far and away the most interesting match leading into WrestleMania this weekend. Because it's one-on-one, it's simple, choices have been made. It's a one-on-one match. And you can actually contrast this not only with the women's title match that I described a moment ago, but also last year, at last year's WrestleMania, Roman Reigns and CM Punk also wrestled each other in the main event of WrestleMania Saturday last year. But it wasn't a one-on-one match between Punk and Roman. It was a 3-way match that also included Seth Rollins. And that was another case where they didn't make choices, where the creative team did not make choices. They could not decide or refused to decide which match to have, so they just threw all 3 guys into the same match and called it the main event because it was 3 really big stars and they decided that should be the main event. There were stories in that match. There was a history between Seth Rollins and CM Punk. They could have had a match against each other. They had wrestled each other a lot before, so it wouldn't have been very fresh. But nonetheless, that story existed. They could have chosen to do CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. There was a history between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns going back many, many years. Again, not a super fresh match because they have clashed before, but they'd had a lot of interaction on TV leading up to WrestleMania. There was history there, both years ago, and also more recently. They could have done that match. They could have chosen to say, this year, we're going to do Roman versus Seth at WrestleMania. I know people have seen it before, but we're going to build it up. We're going to make it fresh. We're going to make it exciting. We're going to make the people want to see it. They didn't do that either. They threw all 3 guys into the match at once. And as a result, it felt overly complicated. It felt like it wasn't as personal as it needed to be. It felt like there was just too much going on. And it just didn't feel special. Because a match with 3 people in it just doesn't feel as special as a match with 2 people in it, because with only 2 people in a match, those are the best 2 people. Those are the 2 people who have the issue to settle or who are fighting for the title, and it's the champion and their #1 challenger, the person who most deserves the title shot. It's simple, it's easy, it's succinct, it's specific. And it's the result of a creative team in this case, or if you're talking about a more conventional form of storytelling, a writer, a filmmaker, a playwright, an author, whatever, making choices. Writing is making choices. So much of storytelling is having the courage as the storyteller to make choices, to choose to do this and not do that, to chart a path for your story, a clear path. And it doesn't mean that the story can't have ambiguity and the story can't have mystery, but you as the writer need to be choosing where the story is going. And you can't hedge, and you can't compromise, and you can't overcomplicate. You have to say, this is the story I'm telling, and commit to it. And that is so much of the secret of good storytelling. And a lot of bad storytelling, a lot of underwhelming storytelling, a lot of storytelling that doesn't land with the impact that a writer might want, is because they didn't make choices. Sometimes it's because they didn't make the right choices, but sometimes it's because they just didn't make choices. They didn't decide what to focus on. They didn't decide what was really important to them as a storyteller, and therefore what they wanted the audience to think was important too. And if you don't do that, if you fail to do that, it's really, really hard to tell a compelling, powerful story. So that's one of the most basic lessons that I know about storytelling, and it is illustrated very, very strongly, I think, in the card to this year's WrestleMania, at least in those couple of matches that I have been blathering on about. Writing is charting a path and committing to it and being brave as a storyteller. Writing is making choices.